So when I try to tell my people that um, when these politicians in Jamaica going around and giving the impression that the economy is growing and things are improving, it is not true. It is clearly not true. The economy is two times. Unemployment doubled since 2007. For the past 20 years, unemployment doubled, and the growth of the Jamaican economy is going down. I'm going to read to you a letter that was written by 5 members of the United States Congress to President Obama after he visited Jamaica, telling President Obama to look into the deal that the IMF, the harsh deal that the IMF give to Jamaica, because this deal is going to kill Jamaica. They compare Jamaica to Greece. And for those who know and understand, who know that the Greece economy has collapsed some months ago. Collapsed totally. Greece become broke. And it was the IMF who actually, and these World Bank, who drove Greece economy into this state. And these congressmen, United States congressmen, are concerned that the Jamaican economy is going to fall in the same situation of Greece. And they are asking President Obama to look into it. And when President Obama came to Jamaica, not one member of the PNP had asked President Obama to address the situation Jamaica is in. Peter Phillips actually offered the IMF the deal that they now have. When they say you borrow money in austerity, that is when the IMF dictates to you how to run the country. They tell you which tax to increase. They tell you to cut education, to cut on health, to sell out, to privatize the government-owned business like JPS, the airport, the cement company. They tell Jamaica to sell these things, and Jamaica have to abide. That's on so when Peter Phillips says they pass IMF tests, that is because the IMF asks them to do certain things which become a serious burden on the Jamaican people. It increased unemployment rapidly. It caused more crime, social unrest. That's how you pass an IMF test. So I'm going to read the letter from the congressman who wrote to President Obama in concern to the crisis. And let me show you. This is the letter, a copy of the letter. That's the heading to President Obama. Okay, so the letter goes by this. Congress of the United States, House of Representative, Washington, D.C., July 14, 2015. President Barack Obama, the White House. Dear Mr. President, as member of Congress who care deeply about strengthening our relations with our Caribbean neighbors, we were delighted by your decision to travel to Jamaica in April and meet with Prime Minister Simpson Miller and other heads of government of the Caribbean community. We were pleased to hear in your remarks to your Caribbean counterparts the emphasis you place and deepening our cooperation in economic growth. Indeed, anemic economic growth has plagued the region for decades and has had led to declining living standards and rising unemployment. The Caribbean nation perhaps most affected by sustained economic stagnation is Jamaica itself. A major factor contributing to the stagnation has been Jamaica's enormous debt burden, with a current debt to GDP ratio of nearly 140%, and the extreme fiscal measures that have been adopted to cover the country's substantial interest payments to the international financial creditors. In our remarks shortly after your bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Simpson Miller, you stated that it is important to find ways to spur growth and not just put the squeeze on folks. and noted that international financial institutions need to show greater flexibility and accommodate the interests of countries who have a strong plan for growth. We very much agree. In fact, we first learned of Jamaica's dire economic strains a few years ago. We began to work closely with IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde or whatever, Dr. Peter Phillips, Jamaica Minister of Finance and Planning, and Government Brian Winter of the Bank of Jamaica to try to find a way forward for the embattled country. We helped to communicate to the IMF what Jamaica was willing to do to get loan package in order to help save the economy. We very much appreciate that the IMF, the World Bank, and the Inter-American Development Bank were able to work so hard at the time to come to an agreement. Unfortunately, more now needs to be done. This is why we now right to ask that you to continue to show your support for the country of Jamaica by urging these institutions, the country's primary external public creditors, to provide the government the fiscal space it desperately needs to boost growth and address continued high unemployment and poverty. According to the IMF Executive Board most recent review, the Jamaican government performance on the IMF program is on track and has remained strong. But the policies implemented under the program have dampened rather than spurred growth. Jamaica now has the world's most austere, that means the world's most severe national budget, with a 7.5% primary surplus last year and for at least the next 3 years as part of the current IMF program. Its interest burden is among the world's highest, 8% of GDP, and interest payments to multilateral financial institutions surpassed multilateral loan disbursements in 2012 and 2013. Last year, Jamaica paid $136 million more to the IMF than what it received from the IMF. We entirely agree with you, as you stated in Kingston, that the best way for a country to reduce its debt is through growth. But the country's enormous debt burden remains a major obstacle to growth, and the extreme fiscal austerity imposed on the countries has proven counterproductive. Jamaica's crushing debt burden has contributed to it being the only country in the Western Hemisphere to have had negative growth in per capita income for the past 2 decades, that is past 20 years. The country's recovery continues to stall. In the last quarter of 2014, Jamaica's growth fell 1.4%. The unemployment rate stands at 14.2%, higher than during the global recession, and the nation's poverty rate has doubled since 2007. To make matters worse, austerity measures have led to deep cuts in critical health and education program. That austerity cut, that's what the IMF ordered Jamaica to do based on what agreement Peter Phillips signed. Okay, back. The time has come to revisit the terms of Jamaica's IMF program. We believe that the IMF should lower Jamaica's budgetary surplus threshold, among other measures, and the IMF and the Multilateral Development Bank should urgently consider extending the maturities of Jamaica's current loans. We respectfully ask you to heed the call of Jamaica's civil social leaders and help bring relief to Jamaica before the country's social economic ills become deeply entrenched. This is a letter signed by the 5 Congress members, United States Congress members, begging President Obama to do something about what the IMF is doing to Jamaica, because the IMF economy is on the verge of collapsing like Greece collapsed some time ago, last year. And I'm telling you, when people talking about growth and let the progress continue, we are on a rough road. A rough road. And the PNP knows. I don't think they even care if JLP win, because they probably want to roll over this to the JLP so they can blame the JLP. My fellow Jamaican, cut out the ignorance. Cut out the ignorance and understand the government and how government operate. The PNP is not good at negotiating. Adli Shah would do a better job. It's up to you, my friend.